Good morning, Horizon Church. And I don't think anybody's out there listening this morning. Anyway, it's a Friday, so hope you guys are all doing well. So, just for those of you who have been helping with the blessing box in any way and helping us to connect with our friends and our neighbors, good morning, Patrice. Glad somebody's there. Just some follow up. We're kind of winding down the blessing box, as I think a lot of you know. Hi, Phyllis. Um, and we have a good supply of food yet that we're going to be putting out there. And one of the things we're going to do is write some notes. Hi, Linda. Morning, Ann. Hi, Stella. We're going to write some notes and put it in the blessing box for people who have been using it. A lot of families have used it. We've also had almost 10 different people contact us. I think it is 10 different people contact us who, in one way or another, either the sign or the blessing box, have contacted us with questions, needs, etc. One of the most interesting conversations I had with a young man who, I don't know if he uses a blessing box or not, but he definitely contacted us, at least through the sign that we have out there. A young guy who, gosh, when I say young, I'm guessing he's probably in his 30s, maybe late 30s, 40s, something like that. And that's young. But he had some questions about faith. Hasn't been part of a church for a long time. I don't know the exact year that he left church. I take it from his story. I didn't get to ask all the details, but I take it from his story that he left the church probably as soon as he could, like when he was in high school, something like that. But he told me the story of growing up in a family that was really devoted to the church. And as he started to describe what their faith was like, hi, Kathy. Yeah, I'm standing. I'm working on a standing desk. I got to do something. All these Oreos that you guys gave me. I'm hoping that a standing desk gets rid of some of the Oreos. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. So he started describing the family he grew up in. And I have no idea what I was talking about. So anyway, he was telling about his family and their faith experience, their life. And he started to describe a family, went to church all the time. This was back in the day when you would go Sunday morning and you would go Sunday night. And Wednesday night, they had youth group and classes, et cetera. He went Wednesday night, with his family. They did everything like that. He described the fact that his parents were very adamant about no alcohol, so never had a drink. Dad was hi, good morning, Rox. Dad never had any of those, for lack of a better word, any of the vices. He didn't gamble, didn't go to bars, wasn't out, on the weekends with his friends. Hi, Pat. They even in his family there was like a no R-rated movie ban, that kind of thing. Dad taught Sunday school, mom taught his worked with his youth group, his younger youth group, etc. So he just went through that whole list of things that his family did, but then he finished by saying, "But they weren't nice people." And when he said that, you could see the pain in his face and in his eyes. We weren't sitting in my office. We were sitting out in the sanctuary where we could be a little bit more distant from each other. Weren't wearing masks or anything like that, but he was sitting here. We were talking. He wanted to have this conversation. So we spent this whole time talking about his family, describing the things that they did that were very faith-based in their outward activity. But inward, he said they were just not nice people. And when he described that, he described a mom and a dad that were very distant in their relationship with each other, very distant in their relationship with him. And he described a dad who was actually, I would use the word nasty. His dad was just a nasty person, nasty to him. He put on a nice front. He described a situation in which his parents, when they went to church, had a very nice front to them, smiled, etc. The kind of people where if there was a need at the church, they would always be front and center and trying to meet the need. But internally, this son kept saying they were nasty. At least his dad was nasty. His mom was just distant. And as a result of that, in his own life, he's always struggled with faith, pretty much gave up on faith at a young age. Like I said, I don't remember the age. I don't even know if he said an age. I just took it from the conversation. As soon as he could, he just left. And so now he wanted to talk. He wanted to have a conversation with me because now he recognizes, I don't know if it's just this pandemic, a lot of people really seem to be looking for answers right now. And he just wanted to know, really his question was, how do you make faith work? Does faith work? That's such a common question. And that experience that he had is so common that there are people who seem to think that faith is the externals. Whenever I hear that conversation from people, whenever I think about it in my own life, whenever I think about how sometimes I evaluate my faith based on externals, I'm reminded of the Pharisees and the struggle that they had with Jesus. And when you think about the Gospels and the Pharisees, I mean, if you would have set up a group that you would think would be most closely aligned with Jesus, it would have been the Pharisees, because the Pharisees they weren't professional Christians. They were a movement, a lay movement of men who just said, you know what, our faith matters and we need to take it seriously. And you would think that when Jesus comes along, there was a group of men, Jewish men, who were saying that our faith really matters and we want to take it seriously. You would think that would be the group that would align most closely with Jesus. But we all know that that was the group that gave Jesus probably the most difficulty. It's constantly the Pharisees who are hounding Jesus. And when you see their struggle with Jesus, you realize that they're evaluating Jesus based on externals, on his obedience to some rules. And many of those rules were grounded in the laws of the Old Testament, but their interpretation of those rules had become, for lack of a better word, like man-made laws. How you obey the Sabbath, and the food laws and the cleanliness laws. And they looked at Jesus and they looked at his disciples and they said, Jesus, we don't get it. We don't understand why, here you are claiming to be a man of God, and yet you don't follow the rules that people of God follow. This is such a common problem that we have as human beings. What the Pharisees had done, and what we all did, what we're all tempted to do, is set up a situation in which we kind of want to know who is in and who is out of the group. For Christians, for example, we want to know, like, are you a person of faith or not? Especially when it comes to church, we want to be able to say, yeah, that's a person who's living by his faith. So we set up a situation in which we have these kind of external rules that tell us whether a person is in or is out, in the same way the Pharisees did. And a lot of times these rules end up being kind of superficial. If you said them out loud, sometimes they're almost silly, but they're the rules that we use. Does a person go to church? When I was growing up, we had these, attendance contests, and at the end of every year in Sunday school, there'd always be these awards for the people who got the perfect attendance. And so we use these kind of external rules to judge whether a person is a person of faith or not. That's what the guy I was talking about, that's how he grew up. His parents were living by, very much legalism. His parents were living by these external rules, but internally, their lives were not lives of faith. In his own words, now, again, I never met his parents. Maybe the problem was his, but this is so common. Internally, these were just nasty people. And everybody in the church put up with it. Everybody just assumed, he's just a nasty guy. And we make allowances for the fact that, he's a nasty guy, not nice to his kids, but, he obeys all the rules. He doesn't drink, doesn't gamble, blah, 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 blah. Those are the rules that church said were important. So if you follow the externals, it really doesn't matter about the internals. We just kind of put up with that. And that's, it's a shame. It's such a depressing thing, because this is exactly what Jesus was talking about when he questioned people, or people came to him and asked, what's most important? There's that famous question. On one or two occasions, Jesus asked it, and on other occasions, it was asked of him. What's the most important law, or what's the most important thing in our faith? And everybody knew the answer. I mean, this was not some kind of a hidden thing. You guys probably know the answer. What's most important? Jesus answered, and this is in all the Gospels: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said that these two really are back to back, loving God and loving other people. And then Jesus said a really important thing. He said, all of the law hangs on those two statements. And it is his way of saying that every single act that we do is either an act that is helping us to love God, or an act that's helping us to love people, or in some cases, both. So Jesus said, really, what faith is all about, if you're looking for a way to know who is in and who is out, you're looking for a way to know whether your faith is genuine, Jesus said, it's really about, do you love God? Do you love people? And this isn't something unique to Jesus. I mean, this was something that the followers of Jesus came to understand. Paul, there's that great chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul talks about love. It's a chapter it's quoted at weddings all the time, but it's about far more than our weddings. As Paul starts by saying, that first couple of verses of 1 Corinthians 13, he says, if I was the best preacher in the world but didn't love, then my words are empty. And he goes on to say that. He reinforces that idea that without love, what we do in our faith, it really doesn't matter. So, I tried to talk to this young guy about that and talk about the fact that the measure of our faith isn't, first of all, the externals. You can't judge, you can't go back to your parents, in his case, or any other people in that church and say, that's what a Christian looks like. You got the externals right, but on the inside, you're nasty. That's not acceptable. And try to talk about the fact that ultimately that Jesus changes us from the inside out. Now, the thing is, one way to ask about your own faith, and this is something I'm conscious of, even in my own life, is to simply ask, over a course of years, I'm not asking, do I get more and more of the externals right, but am I growing in love? As the years go by, am I a person that's growing more and more to love God and to love other people? Now, obviously, love looks like something. You would see love. It isn't just, it's not okay to just say, inside I love God, but my outside's a mess. That doesn't work either. But the outside ought to be evident. You ought to provide evidence of what's going on in your inside. I was thinking about this. And I was thinking, okay, if I sat down with Donna or a group of friends who know me really well and asked them, ask Donna, or if you can imagine asking somebody close to you, hey, over the last 10 years, have I grown in my ability to love you genuinely? And I think that person will be able to say yes or no. It might be an uncomfortable conversation, but obviously love looks like something. But that's the way really that I think that Jesus intends for us to measure our faith, to kind of gauge where we are. Not, am I getting the externals down, but I'm still nasty inside, but am I really growing to be a person who is growing in love? That's what ought to matter in our faith. So like in the context of church, we ought to be able to look at people, look at ourselves, and to ask that question, are we as a body, are we growing in love? Love for God and love for other people. So I tried to talk to that young man about that concept. I don't know where he is. It's not like he had any kind of a dramatic moment sitting here, but he said it was a helpful conversation for him and clarified some things for him for what faith is all about. But I do think it's an important way for us to be evaluating our own faith and evaluating our church and just evaluating, kind of who we are as people. Are we growing in love for God, love for other people? So let me pray for you guys, and then I'm going to keep standing at my desk, working off some Oreos, and getting on with my day. All right, so let's pray. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we've had as a church to serve our neighbors and our community with the blessing box and providing some tangible expressions of our love for people. God, I thank you that we've actually had a chance to serve our community and in some ways to connect with people through that. God, I pray that this wouldn't be just like the one thing that we do, but I pray, God, that we be a church that is constantly growing in our love for you and in our love for our neighbors and our love for each other. God, I know that love, that it looks like something. It's not enough just to say that we love each other and yet continue down the path of being, nasty, not nice people. So God, I pray that you will be transforming us into people who are growing in love. God, we all need help with that. So we depend on you. We depend on your Spirit to point out areas in our lives. We depend on each other to point out areas in our lives where we need to grow in certain areas. So help us, God, to be attentive to you, to your word, and to kind of looking at ourselves, who we are and whether we're people of genuine love or not. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. By the way, just one more thing. I should work out, Stella. Yes. Oh, yeah, I just need some nice weather to get outside and get on my bike. One more thing. I do think that this transformation takes place over a lifetime and maybe on into eternity. I have no idea what eternity is going to be all about. But I find it hopeful to think about the fact that this transformation of being people who love, that it really isn't something that has to take place in 2 weeks or even 2 years, but that God is doing this in our life over a lifetime. And I wanted to point that out as well. So thank you all. I hope you guys have a great Friday and head into a great weekend, and love you all. And I'd like to say I'll see you on Sunday, but I won't see you. You'll see me. See ya.